Hey there, I'm Alan Matthews from Classical Guitar Shed, and in this video we're going to be talking about a little musical device I like to call the Springboard. This is a little thing you can do in your music that can help it to flow forward, make it more lively, light on its feet, and more communicative to the listener. So it's a phrasing tool you can use just to make your music more beautiful. You don't have to do it, but if you'd like to, well then you can. We'll look at it in just a second. So what is the springboard? In a piece of music, we oftentimes see, this is the minuet in G. And I'll explain the circle and the accent in a second. Whenever we're looking at a piece of music, one of the things we'll oftentimes see is a lower note jumping up to a higher note by an interval of a third or more. So we're going along, this is mostly all stepwise and everything, and then this low note, this note is low, it jumps up to a high note. And that note's high. So whenever we see that, one of the things that we can do is we can give that low note a little bit of accent, and that will allow the top note to seem like it just floats out of it. So instead of punching the high note, which breaks the musical line, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes it'll create, it sounds like a stopping or starting point. Instead, if we give a little bit of weight on that bottom note, the top note seems to float right out of it and the music keeps going forward. Oftentimes we see these right around a bar line or a harmony change. So if it's in the middle of the bar, then it would be a harmony change. So especially when you're leading to a new chord, then you'll oftentimes see a low note jumping up to a high note. And then we can accent the low note. So I'm just going to give you some examples of this in three different pieces of music. So this is the minuet in G right here. So you can listen to it. So ba, 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 boom, ba is the springboard again. And here, and here. Wrong notes. And here would be the next one. Bottom. And what it does is it propels us into the next harmony instead of starting over at it. So instead of thinking of this as the end of this, instead of that, we can think of it as that's the end, and then this brings us forward into the next business. Let's look at another one. So this is a few measures into Julia Florida by Agustin Barrios, classic. And if you'll see the circle notes, then it's a low note jumping up to a high note. We're jumping up in the melody. I should say this is mainly, it's in the moving line that we do this. Bass notes oftentimes jump around, and we don't have to do it every single time with them. But in a moving line, when you see this, it'll oftentimes work. So here we have a D going up to the up to the G. So this is this one. So that was it. Again, here it comes. Right here, bottom. Bigger on the D, less on, that's a decrescendo, less on the G. One more time. And then we want to keep going. Instead of, let me just play it the other way. Then that note pops out, which it kind of creates a little stopping point at that, at that moment. Instead, we can launch, and it'll launch the music upwards. Then we know that it keeps going at that point. And this one is the Retrato Brasileiro, the Portrait of Brazil, Retrato by Baden-Powell. And so here we have, and this is really interesting, is why I chose this one. Here we have a slur at the end of every measure, which I typically don't do personally. But here we have a springboard opportunity here, a low note jumping up to a high note right here. With the gold circle, but there's a slur to it. So the question is, can we do the slur and still do the springboard? And if we can't, then which is more important? Which one should we choose? Should we not do the slur and do the springboard, or should we keep the slur and not do the springboard? In general, My take on that is, I only do a slur if it has a musical reason to do it. If not, then I'll articulate it. I wouldn't do the slur just because you can, just because it's written in the music, not necessarily, because we might be thinking about something different than the composer was when they wrote the slur, or the editor, whoever actually wrote the slur. So this is the Ritratto Brasileiro. So if you'll notice, ba, bum, the next chord floats out of it instead of punching. Again. Here it is. Ba, ba, ba. Which sends things forward, and it makes it much more soft arrival at that. It's the fourth measure of the song. We don't want like the big triumphant da-dum. It's not that sort of song, and so we won't want to punch it so hard at the arrival. And oftentimes you'll find these opportunities at an arrival point, and so you can soften the arrival and can make the overall line longer so that it includes the entire section of music. Just do it one more time, just for kicks. So really backing off of the high note right there and giving a little bit of extra weight. It doesn't mean that you have to punch it so hard, but even just a little bit of pressure on the low note and then backing off of the high note in these situations where you're changing harmony and jumping up to a higher note can just do wonders in just how interesting the music is and how much it can move forward in that way. So I hope you enjoy this little tidbit on this musical device I like to call the Springboard. Please subscribe to this channel and have a great day. Bye.